post your pictures?
Or Arnold Schwarzenegger's greatest movie ever. What was the one where he was
junior? And yeah, I'm very attractive as a woman.
Are you? Let me see.
Yeah.
It's on stupid Facebook. Well,
it's not on Facebook. It's on my phone.
Oh, show it to me.
No, my phone's charging. Sorry.
Oh well.
But I will say one thing that is really funny is Young. Young Crofton? Have you guys done the Young version?
Huh? Is it accurate?
All it does is like I have a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. It shaves me. It just like takes away a couple of wrinkles around the eyes, but then it's the exact same photo. I'm like, yeah, that's right.
But no, because I've seen photos of you because you were a lot leaner too when back like Sage Up.
Yeah, but it doesn't change your weight mass. Like it
does. It changes your face like a tiny bit.
Yeah, it didn't. If you look at it straight on, it's gonna
maybe straight on. It's the same.
It's gonna keep the sizing, so they didn't. Yeah, no, I was leaner, but it didn't make.
But there's more to it than that because I saw a picture of me from like 10 years ago recently, and I was like, had that kind of like sort of gangly teenager look, and I was like, man, I do look older now, and I'm just like,
fragile.
Oh, you?
Earth females are too fragile.
You look way older. I have photos of you from my wedding, which wasn't that long ago, and maybe it's the change in hair color and stuff, and the fact that your hair is longer. But you had a beard at my wedding, at like a short trimmed beard, like very very short, but it was almost entirely like black or brown. You know, like there was very little salt and pepper. Like
there's lots of salt and pepper now.
It's so the salt and pepper. It makes a huge difference.
Well, it's funny because I don't notice it that much.
All right, hang on. How long are you guys gonna go on with the conversation? We're starting to
just put it live. Who cares? What is the difference?
We're live. Well, it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to wrap up by 11 or 11:30 at the latest.
Yeah, whatever. So just say live, and then we'll start to get to it.
Let's do a show.
Yeah, it's time to do a show.
Anyways, last bit on salt and pepper. Like, I don't notice it that much. I know I have salt and pepper hair, but it doesn't notice it that much. But I remember I told you I saw Rhonda, and you know Rhonda, Bo.
Tracy's sister?
No.
Yep. Yeah. But Bo wouldn't know her Tracy's. Rhonda. She was in our grade in high school.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, I bumped into her, and she's like, she didn't recognize me. She's like, your gray hair, and I was like, is it that gray? Because I think of it as like it's mostly brown. There's a bit of gray, but I mean, I guess it just like looks gray.
It looks it's getting halfy.
Well, I'm worried about when I cut my hair, which is going to be soon, that it'll just be like full salt and pepper underneath because I've got like a year and a half of back hair here, which is like hiding my gray.
You can dye your hair.
I'm not doing that. I embrace my old age.
Okay. Well,
do you dye your hair, Bo?
It's not just that it's gray. No, but I don't feel bad about mine.
Mike, though, I think you should at one point, like, you just like maybe if you know you're about to cut it, before you cut it, do it, because I'd be really curious to see what you look like once you do it. I want to see if it. I'm wondering if it'd just make you look crazy young. Like I'm just curious.
If I dye my hair.
Yeah, like if you're cutting it, just do it for kicks to see what it looks like.
You mean I should dye my hair as it is now?
Oh,
long, you mean?
Yeah.
Dye it when it's long and then cut it.
I don't care, long, short, whatever. Just like I know you don't want it to stay dyed.
I really don't think it's that gray. Like look at the camera. It looks. Oh yeah, it looks gray there.
It looks really gray. but the thing is, I would like to. I'm curious how much that makes you look older if it's just the hair.
Well, I'm also to get definitely the crow's feet or whatever here.
Well, I've always been big on that, but I have
You don't have the ones here.
No,
because I do a lot of deep thinking.
I also didn't shoot myself in the eye with a piece of wood.
No, it's deep thinking. This is what I do most of the day.
Yeah, thinking about maybe next time I should wear safety goggles.
No, I never thought about that.
All right, you guys ready to go?
Okay, let's stop boring Bo. This is not Blizzard related, so he doesn't know what to say.
Let's get started. It's 10. I'm like tired and headachy. It's late start.
All right. This will be great. Who intros?
It's me.
It's Bo. I'm tired and headachy. Let's do this show.
I'm actually pretty convinced it is Bo who's introing.
No, it is me.
Yeah, I know.
Am I not very loud? I feel like you guys can't hear me.
I think you're loud enough. You're just talking very quiet for you today.
That could be.
And Bo, what did you say for product licensing? Bullshit?
I think you said bullshit. I think I said bullshit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I came down in the middle of it.
Sure,
Yeah,
you did.
I am a little low.
I
don't know how to
thought
turn that up.
I enjoyed Crofton's because
Whatever.
on that one I thought he was gonna go bullshit, but then he went full bad as well.
Yeah.
Yours
I like
enjoyed
when
it
they
'cause
don't
it was
quite
the
know.
same as yours.
All right.
Yeah,
Did you throw out all of your Star Wars
you were
stuff?
smart.
I like when I don't quite know, but then it's what I think.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not quite sure, but then you were right. All right,
All
Bo.
right. Let's
do it.
let's get going. I just wanted to. Did I tweet something? We're gonna tweet. Tweet.
Yes.
We are live. Hi, Wicked Kitten 13.
Does my hair look more gray when it's down or up?
Hello. We're live.
Hey, let me look at the base of the roots of your hair. Lean down.
It's gray.
Okay,
Yeah,
show's starting.
I think when
Hair
you
time's
get a
over.
haircut, it'll be very gray.
Oh God.
Just whatever. You wanted that. I remember when I was in college with you, you were always like, "Oh, I can't wait till my hair's gray and I look like
don't mind
Gandalf."
it, but it's more that the hair changes texture too. It becomes more like coarse and frizzy.
Got a good body.
I got a gray hair somewhere.
Did you say I have a good body? Thanks, Bo.
Your hair has a good body. Your hair.
I definitely have thick hair. I'm not going bald. Knock on wood for that.
Yeah. I
Plus
remember,
wood.
man, for the span of this show, Mike started with long hair, cut it short, and grew it back in. That's how long this has been going.
Just tied back.
Oh, but it's long, what I'm saying. Okay. All right, Good, Bad, or Bullshit, episode 194 begins in 3, 2,
Feels like we've been at 194 forever.
Okay. Really threw me off. And I'm picking up actually kind of quiet, so I think we might start this over again. Well, everything's all messed up. Give me a sec.
All right, let's talk more about non sequiturs.
My mic almost looks like that thing Donald Trump held in his hands in Saudi Arabia.
The orb.
The evil orb.
What was that? I never read an article about what that thing was.
Yeah, I know.
Does that have something to do with Islam?
Yeah, it's,
No,
it's the
I
Islam.
don't think-
It's the. Never mind. It's not going to be appropriate. What I'm going to say.
Wow, Bo started to censor himself. That's new.
All right,
Yeah,
fine.
no,
It's
that's
like
going on.
Muhammad's testicle. They enshrined
It's
it.
probably. Oh, okay. There, you said it.
All right, let's go. Good, Bad, or Bullshit, episode 194 starts in 5, 4, 3. Hello, and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. 3 dudes, unlimited opinions, the place where conversation is the foundation for higher thought. So saith a Russian man whose name I forget. Welcome to the show. Joining me, my name's Bo Schwartz. First, I'm Bo. And I don't have some weird analogy to what I am. Let's say I am the apple. Oh, yeah, I have one. I'm the apple of this podcast, and joining us is the kiwi of this podcast. It's Michael Hodgins. Michael, hello. You're a delicious
You
green
got
fruit.
that whole. You realize that Crofton's is of New Zealandish
Oh,
ancestry.
you said, look at that kiwi behavior. And also joining us on the show is the bananas of this podcast. It is Crofton Steer. Hello, Crofton.
Hey, Bo. It's true. I am Kiwi. I'm literally a citizen of New Zealand, although the government hasn't quite recognized me. But whatever.
Are you a spy?
He's not welcome here. That
I'm
was
a-
my
I'm a-
that was my Kiwi accent.
Wait, get out of our country then. You
It was good.
New
I'm a
Zealand?
permanent resident. I got off at the airport one time, and they took me in this back room and tried to convince me I wasn't a real citizen.
And then I told you when our government was bringing in this thing where if you had dual citizenship, they were going to be able to maybe kick you out of your Canadian citizenship. And I was like, oh, Crofton's finally a second-class citizen here in Canada. He could lose it.
Yeah, but isn't Kiwi a racial epithet for...
No, they like it.
It's, well,
They
it
do.
depends.
You know, there's a lot of races that like their racial
No,
epithets.
I worked with people who people say,
Yeah,
oh, we
but-
got a couple Kiwis working here, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm a Kiwi.
It's not a uniform like thing. It's like it's the equivalent of Canuck or Yank or whatever. Like it's you know
so
whatever.
it's there waiting for when discrimination does come. There's already a name prepared for the situation. Like Canuck, if we were ever ruled by I don't know, let's say American invaded us and the Americans were a higher class of people than Canucks, then it would be a racial epithet that would be prepared for
Yeah,
them
like
to
I think Kiwi at one point was not considered super cool. Now it's fine, but there's still some people that don't take to it, but whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not.
also
I want to meet
thought
that old guy in New Zealand who's like, "Don't call yourself a Kiwi. You're better than that." And-
what would he say? He's like, you're a Commonwealth citizen. Like, what else would it's like you gotta hold on to something.
You're an
Commonwealth.
Easterling.
This fruit analogy, Bo, that you thought was so innocuous is now totally.
And when you
Look,
started with Apple, I thought
guess-
you were gonna call someone
Guess
Microsoft.
guess how many seconds prior to the show I spent coming up with this?
I'm gonna say 0, and I'm gonna say you thought about it while you were talking.
Yes,
You know,
it's true. That's
a
why you said
very
Apple.
good. It's a very good answer, but yeah, it was while I was talking. I literally was like, I don't have an analogy. When I said I didn't have an analogy, I quite literally did not have one, and then I decided
Then you're
to
like, I'll just make one.
Bo, believe it or not, I've done 194 of these episodes with you,
Oh,
and
is
I'm
that all?
somewhat privy to your way of thinking. Mike generally spends a lot of time percolating his responses, but I know that yours sort of come out as they come in. You know what I mean? It's sort of like
Yeah.
it's a throughway, a highway, if you
They
will.
come out of the same place that they put in the butt medicine we talked about at the end of last episode. For those,
And it's sort of like it's sort of like those kind of when you throw up but you don't even know it's coming, all of a sudden you're just vomiting in a toilet. That's like how Bo's stuff comes out.
all right.
And then sometimes for me, it's like, when you see someone vomit and then you need to vomit. Like, I feel like that sometimes happens to me. Like, he's vomiting everywhere, and I'm like, oh, God, I feel sick. And then I start talking like crazy, too.
All right. Well,
Just like right now.
this was a great conversation. I think we need to move on to a random topic. No one cares what we did this past week. Does anyone have anything big they want to share? They feel they want to get on a soapbox and share it with the world?
I laid down some sod today.
Anyone else?
Moving along. All right, fine.
Moving on.
I'm just
Let's get
kidding.
a
It's
random
because
topic.
He's a sodomizer.
No one wants to hear about my sod lane.
he's not a
Let's go.
sodomizer. That's,
All right.
All right. Where is
That's
all right,
what that
get it
word
ready.
means, right?
Get it. Sod man. Blade sodding in your hand. There's a
Finally.
Big, a big smile on. Oh, no, not
the
tonight.
The topic today is the hive mind.
Oh shit.
Oh, Mo's going to have to do some heavy lifting.
You better explain to us, because he's been talking about this for, what are we at, episode 194, so about 194 episodes he's been talking about the hive mind.
We're a pretty dignified podcast, and for the most part, we have our jokes, and we're silly, and we're friends, we know each other, so we have these familiar jokes, and we get crude, but mostly we're a civil podcast that discusses things very civilly. But if we were to have a single meme that goes down in the annals of history with good, bad, or bullshit,
It was annals.
It's annals?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you knew that too.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's
know the
probably the
word.
annals. Yeah, it's the okay. The
It's
things
the
that go down
annals
in
of
the
time.
annals.
I often bring up the hive mind when delivering a verdict. And
Yes,
finally
for
we've
example,
arrived.
the last time you brought it up was during convenience foods,
It's true.
because somehow that really, when you're putting a pogo in the microwave, I usually think about the hive mind. Why don't you just tell us what it is, what you think that
Well,
is?
Yes, notice how Mike hedged his question there. He started with, "Why don't you tell us what it is?" and then backed off and was like, "Wait, why don't you tell us what you think it is?"
Well-
So, Bo, please do.
Do hive minds exist in nature in any species that we know of in any real way? I don't think so.
Some people would argue that forests are, but there's also a lot of argument of, is a tree sentient? And I think
Is it? What about bees? I thought
no, well, their minds are not linked. That's what it's like bees operate like as a unit, but they don't think together. Like their minds are not connected. But some people say that a forest actually, like the roots of trees, communicate with each other. This is like new agey.
Yeah, but this is
I
a
don't
good
know
this is
if
a
there's
good
all the hard
launching point
sides
for
to
me
this.
because I feel like it's my job to explain the hive mind so we can discuss it in its full stupidity,
Yes, we'll
if you
ask
will.
you to, but then you ask the question.
I know, because it's it's a podcast. We have to chit chat and get to the thing. Anyways,
Okay, so tell us what you
hive
think
mind,
it is.
Okay, it's this idea that. So I liked what you said about our connectedness because even though we have separate minds, we are connected in a certain way. Everyone's connected. You see someone yawn and you yawn. Like there are things that you do.
What's the hive mind?
But the problem is that there's a lot of things separating us. And I really feel that the way that our minds function, there's a bunch of signals of electricity. There's still a mystery to how the mind functions. So there's no way for me to explain exactly how this works, and it's just the technology's not there. So our understanding is not even there. But it seems to me like there might be a method to meld our minds into one, what would you call it, like a host? Like if your brain was a host for the electrical signals that are in your mind, what if you had one brain but the electrical signals of two individuals in that same brain? And then what if you expounded that out? Would you continue to keep your own identity, or would you be one mind? And it's an interesting question, but the way I imagine it is our electrical signals that form our consciousness or who we are could share a container together. And part of the problem with interacting with other people is just that we have these unique individual selfish needs. We have to eat, we want things. We're very much driven by the compulsion of our bodies. And what if that wasn't a thing? What if you had nothing but are you without your body? I kind of think you don't need the body. I kind of think you're still you. And I kind of think we can share in a more intimate way. And I don't mean a romantic way. Just we can know one another better through a more efficient means of communication and a more efficient means to live. So part of it is shedding your body to be in the hive mind. That's part of the deal.
So, question, because I get the idea of like when explaining the concept of a hive mind, if you just take it and put it onto our existing structure, we don't as humans, we don't exist in such a way to support it. You would need a different creature that operates with a hive mind. Like we're all made to be individuals that operate it. Like all the tools we've evolved into have been given to support our current existence. You can't just necessarily switch hive mind using the same sort of like bodies and way we are now. So yes, I think that it does likely infer that we would become something else but my question to you, I guess, to help me understand it better, how would it work using our existing bodies and appendages? Would it mean that, say, everybody was connected via the hive mind? Would it mean that we could all, like, if somebody lifted their left arm, everybody in the world would lift their left arm at the same time? Is that how?
No, I'm more mean disparate identities.
Is it just like? Can I? This is what I get. Is it just like you download your brain into a computer, and a billion other people also did that, and now there's this big sort of space where all these minds live in this computer? Is that kind of what you mean?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
That could be, but like if we're using the broad term hive mind, it doesn't necessarily. That's one version of a hive mind. Yeah. But like, my question was just like, if we didn't download are we saying it's getting rid of bodies? Like, because that's something completely different. Well,
it's kind of a science fiction idea, I think, for the most part. Or
so in this science fiction, because it seems like Bo likes the concept. The concept that he's always had when he talks about this is escaping our physical bodies and becoming like some greater degree of sentience, and then
it'll make space travel
linking all that shit together. So like, but you could technically like there could be a hive mind that we would keep our bodies, like that could be another type of hive mind.
I'm not swearing any kind of monopoly on imagining what a hive mind might be like. I'm just looking at threads in the world that point to the possibility of you being you without your body, if that makes sense. And then what would be the barriers to sharing you in an efficient mode of communication, right? So I think of like AI development and different forms of replication of life in biology. Like we are pulling at the threads of what makes living organisms as we know them on Earth work and how to replicate them ourselves. We're constantly replicating it. And part of that learning to replicate might not be we're going to create a race of robots to serve us, although that might be helpful for a hive mind. But that the way we exist now is not perfect and can be improved upon. And the people who tend to say those things tend to be movie villains, who improve upon humanity and then you lose your humanity. But, those are just stories.
Yeah, but
they're not indicative of real life.
But it is kind of interesting, and I think, but I would say not just movie villains. I mean, you're right to kind of point that out, but also it's just like there's this whole movement of transhumanism, right? Where people and I feel like this lives in that transhumanist movement where people are like, we're going to evolve to another, I will grant that I think you have done more thinking about this than I initially thought, just because you at least said, you're like, what am I, or like what does it mean to be me, or anything like that. And you said you think that it's like your mind can exist without your body, and I'm highly skeptical of that. I think that you need your body more than you think you do, and not even for stuff like it keeps your brain alive or whatever. I grant you that say technology exists, you can choose to just download your consciousness into this cybernetic realm, not cybernetic, but cyber realm, and
it could be organic. It could be a new biological container that we make as well. That might be necessary.
But you said it's a hive mind, so right. It's like a hive implies many. The point being, you're talking about communication, so there's all these other minds that are in there as well. It's not a hive mind if you just download your brain into some new biological organism and walk around, and now you're just a new monster thing.
Yeah. And so I've thought of this, or I mean, I have thoughts on this. I haven't solved it. I've thought of this. I've got it covered. But the other idea, the concurrent idea, is, and this is more unique to me. I have a long-standing background in client services, and you pick up a lot of techniques.
Okay.
No, you laugh, but you pick up a lot of techniques along the way and how to deal with people and how to really listen, I suppose. How to be. I think I've always been a good listener. Even I don't think it has anything to do with my career history as much, although I've benefited from it. This idea of empathy, this idea of, this idea that you might say.
Were you getting at something like you can understand if you had a hive mind, if you could feel what it felt like to be another person, you would understand them better.
A woman says they're the subject of systemic discrimination and cultural, feeling guilt for not playing, let's say, a cultural role that's expected of women. And you're a dude and you're having a hard time, even the words are barely making sense. You'll never get through to a person until they have some kind of analog or feel what you feel. Again, there's a lot of stories about, jerks coming to Jesus when they're in an analogous situation and then empathize with the person that they bullied or whatever early in the story. This is a common trope, but it's not like without merit that this is a thing that we do, that people hurt or people feel things, and try even as you might or don't try, you can't know a thing until you've really felt it. And I have this sense that there's a way to transfer that feeling more than in just words or a hug or in an essay. Like, these things are all very, as much as we've developed writing, and writing is a great technology, in a certain sense you could look at it and say there's going to be a day where the idea of writing your thoughts down so someone can understand you is like barbaric and ridiculous. And I feel like that efficiency is gained by literally putting my electrical signals into Crofton's brain and saying, like, look, this is why I like to play Heroes of the Storm. And Crofton going like, I get it. I really get it. And I'm not just saying I get it or being a good friend. I truly get why you like playing Heroes of the Storm. I'm still not going to play it, but I really get it. And
also, there's some really disturbing stuff in here.
I get why you like X, Y, and Z, or I get why you feel the pain you feel, or I get things. Like, the biggest challenges in all of our human interactions, and on this show, when we're discussing things, is making someone truly understand not just your logical points or your knowledge, but that feeling, that empathy or sympathy, or that connectedness that we struggle with to try and really make people feel what we feel. And that's why when you find someone who's like been through what you've been through, you can form a connection with that person. It's
interesting. Like that point is interesting. I kind of agree with it. I mean, but I also feel like, I can understand something like systemic discrimination against women without being a woman. I feel like I do acknowledge that that's a thing. I would understand it better if I went through it, but so I guess the idea being that if there was a hive man, I could really feel what that was like. But what I was also thinking about when you were talking about this, because I was like, okay, it really is an interesting thing. If you really feel how the people feel, you can empathize with them more. But I'm curious about, so say, and I think about this in terms of like when I'm trying to like get across how I see something to say someone like my dad and who can be very bullheaded and stubborn. And I'm just like, if you could just see things the way I see things, maybe things would be more clear. But think about it like, okay, so you go on, you Bo, go in the hive mind, you have your light worldview or whatever. And then you connect with someone who is like a devout fundamentalist Muslim. Mm-hmm. And now you feel the world as they feel it. You can feel that for them, Muhammad is the prophet, that it's truth, that God is good, and it just flows through you, and you can feel this. Mm-hmm. Now, and they feel your endless void of atheism or whatever that I would share.
Sure.
Okay, so what does that do? Because I can already empathize with the idea that these people, and I don't mean that derogatorily, but any other person has a worldview which they believe. And so if I could experience that, and then, but I'm, or you are sort of kind of devoutly atheist, mm-hmm. You can understand each other better. Is that okay, great. But what's that going to do? Are they going to give up their religion? Are you going to become a believer?
Yeah. And this is the tough thing
Curious.
But I'm curious about this too. This is the tough thing about where your need for individuality. How much do you need to hold on? Like, do you need that individuality and those ideologies because you are isolated from others, and because you need to belong to groups and systems of belief, through these rituals that we have? But what if we really understood each other? Would we need a lot of these divisive lines, and could we? The point is, can we improve as a species and as a community by sharing more deeply? I'm willing to say the opposite might happen, and the hive mind might be a technological miracle that we make that just makes everyone worse. That's TBD, I think.
See, you guys keep talking about these, like, everybody and individuals having different interactions and stuff. I've always thought about this hive mind thing is there is no individuals anymore. You're all one entity. You're all like one
the
being.
Borg.
Yeah, essentially. So in looking at it in that way, like, soon as this topic came up, I thought, and we started talking about it, I'm like, well, already people who have firm religious beliefs about how the spirit exists outside of the body and all this, they're clearly going to have issues with this concept as in general. And then on the other side of things, like, Bo, you talked about the movie villain thing, about how I sound like a movie villain, is because movie villains fall into two buckets. Either they're extreme on the individual personal liberty side of things, like you think of a dictator taking power, or they're extreme on, like, I'm doing this for the collective good type thing. Okay. And this is where that falls into. So it's an extreme position. So people that are strong individualists, talking about their individual likes, dislikes, worldviews, Like when we move to hive mind, to me that is like it's like socialism times a million zillion.
Yeah.
Like it is like all of us merging together, and there are no individuals anymore. And that it's hard to look at that as an individual who values their individuality and feel positively about it. But that's because I have that innate bias, and maybe being this giant Professor X Cerbero collective would be better for us as a race. Like maybe we would do great things as one giant entity. Maybe we just all friggin' self-destruct, too many conflicting things, or maybe we get it all sort of straightened out. But one thing I've always felt when thinking about this is that I would lose my individuality, and everybody else would too, and the beauty of like discovery and discovering other people and all that would be lost from the world as well, because we would constantly all be thinking the same things together.
Well, and I think that like that's a very human thing to feel. Like it's hard. I think it's hard to imagine what it would be like just to share brains. It's impossible. Who knows what that would feel like? My theory is that if you can empathize so deeply with another person, that person probably becomes a part of you. Like if I shared mine with John Smith, then in such an empathetic way, like how much of my individuality do I retain, and how much do I gain as a sentient being by sharing in such an intimate way? And it's unanswerable. We don't know, right? I don't think we know.
Yeah, but I guess I'm trying to like, do you see it as what Crofton described, which is just that the individual self sort of just vanishes into this thing? There is no self anymore. Or do you see it as you still maintain a sense of self, but can feel and empathize with a billion people? So you can feel the connectivity. How do you see it?
I see it as category 2. So I see it very much as retaining individuality within this system as being super important. I can't tell if that's because of my human bias or not. That, you know, the only way to know is to start doing it and to figure it out. But that's how I imagine I'd prefer it. And it's what impact would such intimacy have on you as an individual? I imagine it would change the shape of your concept of individuality in a way that we've never experienced. But can't imagine.
I think you're trying, like, because that's like, I want to have my cake and eat it too type thing, because
we just don't know. Like, I can't answer definitively.
No, but I mean, I think just logically, if you think about it, and you're like, okay, yeah, like if we're all brought together in that way, connected over long term, we're all going to become, like, if we're feeling everybody at once, we're going to lose that individuality, and we're going to become, like, I just logically, I can't see it any other way. And with you, and this is one thing I've always found interesting about your fascination with the hive mind, is that you strike me as somebody who is very individualist, who is like, I believe this, I have a strong opinion on this. That's part of the reason we do this show together, is because you have a strong opinion on these different topics. I like things this way, or I like, I want to do this. I don't want to be told what to do and all that. Yeah. And it feels like that this is very counterintuitive to that, in that, like, it's essentially you giving up who you are in favor of the common good, the common collective, and us all, like, being either one thing or all very tightly connected. I don't think it's going to be that, now Crofton will be able to understand how much I like Heroes of the Storm. It's going to be more like we all don't have interests anymore to a certain extent.
I can kind of, I want to jump before Bo does, because I can kind of see where he's coming at it, in terms of, if you I often make jokes about Bo spending all his time on the internet, right? He's like in hive mind beta, because he basically, most of his social life is on the internet.
I'd say alpha.
Oh, okay. I don't even know. Whatever. I always thought the beta was whatever, the thing that comes before the real thing, and so I can see that it makes sense in terms of seeing these gradations. So you can spend most of your conscious time in a virtual environment, in a game. You can interact with other people, blah blah blah. Like, I think that there's a leap you can make to say, like, well, what is my physical body like? I was making these jokes about Bo's like body being in this mucus cell where it's just pumped in nutrients and he just lives on the internet. And I could see that being a kind of thing that it's like, okay, your individual self's preserved because your body's still there, housing your brain. You're just neurally uplinked into the system, and because of some yet to be discovered technology, now there's super fast communication, and you can have these kind of like interactions with other people and have this deep empathy and experience other people's experiences. I can kind of like get at what Bo's coming at from that. Is maybe it's a possibility.
Like in this hard drive of a head, and for the audio listeners, I'm holding my head. If I could take what's in there and mash it up with what's in your mind, that's the basis of it. So, and here's another, because I'm not very definitive about the concept. When we talk about hive mind generally in the jokey way, and in the general I'm giving a verdict and calling the hive mind out, I mean it as in like a million souls all in one place. But a hive mind could be a cabal of like 10 to 20 people. Maybe it's just its own community. Like,
it's just your guild, and wow.
What fascinates me, but it isn't though. What fascinates me is feeling what others feel. And we don't talk about that. We talk a lot about saying the right things, being politically correct. We talk a lot about raising awareness. We talk a lot about standing up for what's right. But a key thing is just like, I want to relay a personal story, but it's actually too personal to share. I don't want to share details of it. But let's just say, and I don't think the person's listening or anything like that. It's just, promise is a promise and things like that. But, let's just say I'm close with someone that I know experienced the loss of a very close loved one. And, we're at the age now where we know of people that we've cared about deeply that we've lost. But what's it like to lose someone at a young age, lose a parental figure at a young age? And what difference would it make for me to understand what that person's feeling in our, relationship interactions, where I'm not... Where I want to explore that, or I want to feel that, or I want to commune with it. It's just hard to know another person's mind, even when you're married to them. And I just feel like there's that wall there with people. Like, no matter how much you share or tell, there can be things that you can't share enough of. And it's always fascinated me that you could be in a close relationship with someone, friendship or marriage, and still not know them. And that's always fascinated me. And it's always felt like we are developing in so many realms in technology that sharing minds, if we believe in love, and if we believe in intimacy, and if we believe in expanding the borders of our mind, that truly sharing a mind is something worth pursuing.
But see, okay, so everything there I'm okay with to a certain extent, but that's not the hive mind. Okay, so like
that's the beginning of the hive mind.
If I said, so for my toddler, for instance, today was really, really upset. She's really good at speaking for her age, but sometimes she has problems with words, and we just couldn't understand what she was asking. And she knew that was a problem. It was like a communication breakdown. She was trying to tell us something, and we were like misinterpreting it, and we knew we were, and she's getting increasingly upset because in repeating it with the exact same words, which was not getting us any further and making her more pissed off. And I just like, oh God, I just want to understand what she's saying. She's trying to say something here. And like, yes, in that situation and in countless others, like where there's conflict, there's war, the Spock mind meld or whatever, that I see, that's okay. That's a positive as a tool where you can sort of like, you're walking around, you're like, I'm my own guy. Oh, hey, I want to communicate with this person. Let's mind meld. I don't consider that the hive mind. That's a bunch of individuals going around that have like a special ability, telepathy or emotional
I agree with
telepathy.
You. I agree with you.
So and I think that's positive, and I think that would be great. Like if people were all Professor X and were able to be like, this is what I think, that'd be amazing. But it's not. Like the hive mind to me is like in what we're doing on the show is going to be giving it a verdict. So I need to be able to to think what it is. And I know it's a science fiction concept and it's all different, but it's got to stay within certain parameters.
Yeah.
And for me, it's everybody being linked. That's what a hive mind is. It's not like
that is
just two people on cue.
That's what I mean. We're just sort of discussing the building blocks leading up to it because, and this is where my bias comes in, I assume it will be a good thing. And I assume meaning, well, if we want to do it with one person, we should do it with everybody. Is why I refer to it as the hive mind. Because it will be good, and maybe you don't agree.
It's funny. I mean, my gut is that I think it would be bad, probably.
Could be.
And part of why I think it would be because so you mentioned at the start, and this is what resonated with me, which I'm glad that you had put some thought into, is like what does it mean to be an individual, and I think that like what. I agree kind of with Crofton said in a little bit that you have this idea of I want my cake and eat it too. Like I want to preserve my sense of self, but yet be in the space where I can feel what all other people are feeling, whatever. I think beyond just the simple thing that we would lack the processing power to actually understand it. Like I've heard this things in a couple different places where human beings kind of have is a group of people that they can relate to. It's like 150 is about the ideal number of people who are friends, acquaintances, family. That 150 is like the ideal number. Thousands is not really relatable in an intimate level. And even that 150, it's not all like close people. Mm-hmm. And they're like, because, and this is the point I want to come to hard on this, is because that's how way we evolved in small kind of groups. Mm-hmm. And again, coming back to what it means to be like when I sit here seeing the world as an individual, having a sense of self, that's all a perception. Like we know enough to know that what we see and what we feel and what we experience isn't reality. It's just an illusion that our minds create. That's what it is. It's like I can name all kinds of things we can't see. Most of the spectrum of light we can't see. We can't really experience time as a dimension, which it is. There's all these things that we can't perceive because we're limited by how we evolved to perceive something, and that's based on what it took for us to survive. That's all it's about, evolution. It's just like what is advantageous to survive. If we perceived everything, it would overwhelm us. Like if we were aware of all the spectrum of light right now, like ultraviolet through to radiation, and we could see all that, it would be like gobbledygook.
And, I'm sure that's true.
So what I'm saying is that we've had millions of years of evolution, and we take for granted this sense of self, and we perceive the world, and we look, and things are in color, but if you can just understand the fact that, and this too, that we're not getting 98% of it. We're getting a slice that makes us be able to function. And that was what created that, was being a physical creature that walked around in the physical world. That's what created that. Mm-hmm. So kind of like, I agree with Crofton in the sense that if you were to download your brain into a computer and you gave up the physical self, not only I think would you feel entirely disoriented, you'd have no sense of, say, weight. Like just the fact that you feel like you have a body. We have a sense of like, I'm a thing, right? And now we take that for granted. Now you're in a computer. What are you? You would be discombobulated. Your senses are no longer connected. You have no eyes. You have no ears. You'd be like, I think you'd be very quickly terrified, probably. And then maybe you'd be like, okay, there's other people here, I can connect with them. And I think pretty quickly you'd lose your sense of self. I think it would probably become what Crofton described, or more like the Borg style, where you just like, I really think that sense of self is intrinsically linked to being in a physical body. And I think we think it's not because we spend a lot of time in our minds. We have this feeling that there's this little thing inside our heads that is just driving this body, and we could leave it. Mm-hmm. But I think that we've never done this. And I mean, I appreciate the thought experiment you've been doing, both thinking about this stuff, because what if we could? But I just think it'd be a lot more discombobulating. I like that word, apparently.
That's a good word for this discussion.
Then we think it, then the initial assumption, because like saying like, oh, the internet, I log online. Why can't I just connect my brain and do what I want? It could just be like that. I think there's all kinds of unforeseen things.
And you're probably right. The problem with evaluating a science fiction concept is that it's hard to really discredit anyone's opinion. I don't want to, sound like a lot of what both of you said seems perfectly reasonable. I think my approach to it, just because it's my idea, my bias is towards, we'll figure out that in the new container, right? It's just like, oh, don't have a sense of self? Well, maybe there's a sense of self gland we'll put in the new hive mind brain. It's like, I can just imagine solutions to everything. So I think what you're saying has a lot of value. I have no doubt this is like probably an impossibility. This is still, even with all of our developments, this idea is very pipe dreamy, I think. But I like thinking about it because I always go back to the root of the idea, which is just sharing thoughts. It's something we can't do,
and I like that too.
Would if we could.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting point of it. And then, so coming back to, like, I still stand by this whole, I think the self would dissolve, and it would probably be terrifying. That's what I sort of think. But even saying, okay, forget that. Forget the fact that I really think the self is defined by evolution and blah, blah, blah. Forget all that. And just say that this thing does exist. Okay, it can preserve the self. You go in, and say I only choose to do this when my physical body is about to die. Say I'm like 80 years old and my mind's in still good shape, and it's like, hey, now's the time. Download me, goddammit, because I'm going into a pine box otherwise. And now I'm on the hive mind and I can live forever in theory in this like energy state. And I can preserve myself and I can interact with people as I see fit. I still think, just from what you said about, like, okay, you'd feel what other people feel and be able to empathize and all this kind of stuff. The interesting thing about that, you mentioned the word bias, and we all have our biases, which run pretty deep. It's how our worldviews are defined. And my example around the person who's like the fundamentalist Muslim, and someone like you who's kind of a progressive hedonist, would be like, I just think that those biases, I feel like even if you can understand other people's, and it's interesting the thought that you could, I just don't understand how. I feel like there's a non-compute there. So like, I feel pretty strongly about a lot of the stuff I do, and I acknowledge that someone like a born again Christian might believe to their core, like for them it's not even a question. They're not having this like, oh, I sort of believe in Christ. They're like, it's truth to them. There's no questioning. I can understand that, and yet my worldview, my biases are like, that's a bunch of BS. Like, I can't, I'm like, they've just brainwashed themselves. Those are my biases. I acknowledge that, and I'm like, I could be wrong, whatever. And I hold those things strongly. Just because I could understand them better, I still, like, I just see, how are those things going to clash? Like, yeah, I can understand them better. What I feel like it's just going to be like a big mess is what I see. I think it would be very similar to how the real world is. You get on there and you'd feel other people's biases, but they would irk you, because you'd be like,
sure.
These things would rub you the wrong way.
You go into a mind vat with Charles Manson, and you're, peace-loving person, and he's like a murderer or something, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like, and if I can understand even the fact that someone has like something like joy in killing, or like the idea of suicide bombing always just...
Okay, I got a better example. You did downloaded and shared with Donald Trump.
It's
even your electricity is orange, Donald. This sucks.
He couldn't lie in the hive mind, though.
That's an interesting thing. That's a part of it. Good point, Crofton.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. You couldn't lie, but the thing is, you'd probably also feel what it feels like to be him, and you'd be like, wow, I'm the best. There's no one better than me. I'm the smartest. I'm the best. But then you'd still have, as you say, you'd still have your sense of self, so you'd still be like, but that's a bunch, you're an idiot. Or, so I just don't see, so it's either one, like, it wouldn't be any different, because you'd still have your biases, other people would have theirs, you'd still have your worldview, other people would have theirs, you'd feel it intrinsically, or are you just going to be convinced? So I can see like one of, it's like three things would happen. It's either like the self just dissolves, and it's like what Crofton says, just a mess of a hive mind that's one thing, there's no sense of self. you maintain yourself and you just clash with everyone, which is like the real world, only way more intense because you're feeling their thoughts and hating on them. Or this is the third thing. This is maybe the one that is part of your utopia, is that everyone borrows from everyone else's bit of bias and everyone brings each other more towards the center until, to me, then you have this, what you'd call it, like
the Liberal Party of Canada.
Good one. But yes, like,
oh my
you'd
God,
have
call
this
the ambulance.
no, but that's a really good example. You'd have this boring, crappy, down the middle, trying to please everyone but pleasing no one kind of thing that would be ultimately boring and terrible. And you'd be like, God, I like the world when people had different views. And...
Yes, I think a lot of what you said there sounds right to me. I don't take issue with it. I just think the scope is too narrow about what's going on in the mind. Because your mind doesn't just have opinions. It has memory. It has thought and opinion informed by experience. I just think the way that thoughts manifest themselves are not like rational thoughts we're expressing here on the show, which is, I still think, going to be part of what happens. So I don't take issue with anything you said. I just think we're not accounting for all. If I got into the mind with Trump and remembered what he remembered, or had the feel, like, how does the brain work so that my consciousness interprets it into a thing? It's more than just an opinion. It comes from a lot of simultaneous sources that make up the person. And
but I see, just to jump in, I mean, but those are what biases are.
Sure.
Because I agree with you, like things like your experience, how you were raised, the feelings you had, all these things that are broader than just what you think or your opinions. I agree, but I think those are like biases, and that's why they run so deep. So someone who has a completely different and I mean, I say biases, but I also just mean like worldview. Just how you view the world is based on all these things, the experiences you've had, the feelings you've had, the types of relationships you've had over the course of your whole life, what your childhood was like. This is interesting and deep stuff. And when you can feel what someone else's was like, some person who grew up in a developing country that's war-torn and suffered famine, I mean, if I were to experience that, I'm like, yes, it would be mind-opening in the sense that it'd be very different from the life I've led. And would I learn a lot? Absolutely. But I can still empathize with that reality that someone has and acknowledge that I have a privilege that they've lacked, and try to learn from that. So I just mean, like, it exists in the real world already, this type of thing. I can see how it'd be more intimate.
And so here's like the possibility I'm leaving open, is that it's possible through this process you do lose your individuality, but you become, I just can't help but feel, and this is a very bludgeoning technology, but if you throw a bunch of processes together, then you increase processing power. Throwing minds together would increase processing power of the human mind. I'm in my science fiction, I say it would, but in theory there's something there. There's something there for the betterment of mankind. The mind is the last frontier. And I think you've brought up great points, but I remain unconvinced, Mike. I remain unconvinced. I think we should get Crofton get some words in.
No, we can just roll into verdicts.
Oh, you ready for verdicts?
Are you ready?
So
I could. The one thing I'd say is that this conversation falls in so many different spheres. You've got like religion, sociology, philosophy, like the science fiction. Obviously, there's tons of things that and as Bo has astutely pointed out, it's what you want it to be. For me, right now, the positive is what Bo has presented in the empathy element and the relating amongst people better. And I like that. I do like that. Appeals to me. And I gave the example of my toddler. But I also think, like, I do think, as somebody who works in communications, who likes the written word, who likes being able to explain himself with words, who does a podcast, that the tools that are available to me that will now be useless in a hive mind, and that I've taken, that I've comfortable with and enjoy using, I would be sad to see go. And I think that there may be betterment drawn from that, even on the sharing of emotions level. But if there isn't, then for me it's a sad loss, and I acknowledge my bias.
We'll have mindcasts, and we may not have podcasts, but we'll have mindcasts in the Hive Mind. We'll still be employed. It'll be good.
Yeah.
And it's also funny because you talk about the parallels to me between the internet, and I feel like this is where this idea comes from ultimately. This is a very first step in that technology, but like has shown us that like we were making jokes about the terrible things that come out on the internet, right? Where people say things once they have a kind of anonymity, and maybe the hive mind would be the opposite of that. It would be a complete lack of anonymity. But the people say these things that are terrible, right, on the internet, right? Racism and sexism, all these horrible things come out. But the thing is, that's someone's inner thought somewhere, right? So the internet lets us see that because people have anonymity and an audience and wanting to provoke people. This is a thing that has existed now, and the whole trolling stuff. So, in human interactions, most people never say these things because they know it's hurtful to people. And when you're talking with another individual, you get cues you don't want to say those things unless you're a real asshole. And there are those people. But if you had a hive mind, I think it would also be very sad and disappointed by how awful you'd find humanity. Like that's one thing.
They wouldn't be invited to the hive mind. They could be part of the slave case.
You can't be like, oh well, I'll invite like all nice people to go into a hive mind.
The hive mind idea, not necessarily a utopia for everybody. We do need a worker case probably to maintain whatever system.
But I mean, you don't know. There could be a person that you think is like, just a wonderful person. It's like whenever they say serial killers, people be like, oh, but he seemed like such a nice guy.
Because here's how it works, Mike. I've got the solution. We insert them into the mind, but they're in the mini mind, where they go through a rigorous vetting process, and because everything's seen, it's your thoughts. There's a voting committee of different minds, and then they put you back out in a robot
I also
body.
feel like I've always thought I feel like an empathetic person. And sadly I thought, and this became clear when the Trump election came out, something that was very clear to me before, which was that people at large are kind of a lot stupider than you think. And that's a sad, I think, truth we learned when Donald Trump got elected. To be like, really? Are people that stupid? And the answer, sadly, yes, they're stupider than you think they are. And it just used to be that you had candidates who were of a high enough caliber that the stupidity didn't come out. But now we have Donald Trump, and he's president. And that says something bad. So I'm like, you'd have these people in your hive mind, and you'd be like, really? That's what someone thinks about this? Ugh. I feel like you'd be fatigued by like the depths of some people's views on things. You'd have to deal with it all the time in the same way that navigating the internet requires you to have like a filter of like, don't read the comments, don't engage in certain places where the trolls are. The hive mind would be the same. I don't think you could have it be like it's a big firewall of
I don't
people.
view it as analogous to the internet, except for the idea of connectivity.
But you're like, only nice people allowed in? I mean,
well, yeah, we want, the quality of your hive mind is curated
how do you determine
the people
that?
that are in there.
I know that we should move into verdicts, but the fact that you guys keep going on about you being an individual in this thing always gets it's like you'll all be in the thing together.
I agree with
You're
you,
not
Crofton.
going to have any individuality.
I agree with you.
Crofton, if there's no individuality, it's not a hive mind, it's a mind. Like there would have to be individuality in a hive mind.
Well, no, I think what he means is true. It's a sense that some people have said, we talked about bees. I don't think their minds are interconnected, but some people would say bees are an organism that's made up of all individuals which act for one greater purpose. So that you could look at a beehive as being kind of its own organism. It doesn't no bee exists on its own, right? It exists as a hive. So I think he's correct ultimately in the sense that you become one new entity. You might be made up of individuals, but the thing is one thing.
Yeah, so because I think the term hive mind is throwing you a bit, Crofton, too, because I use hive mind, but it's probably not the correct term, generally speaking.
Maybe, but that's what came up.
Okay, let's do verdicts.
Yeah, because I'm not meaning it like ants or an insect, like insect races in science fiction.
You don't want to be the Borg, basically.
Yeah, or the Zerg.
Because insect races in science fiction are exactly they are hive minds.
Yeah,
the Zerg is a hive mind.
So my concept, which I call a hive mind, isn't like insectoid races. It's a little more democratic than that, but still with a power structure.
Is my verdict on on hive minds,
or is it on
Bo's?
It's on my hive mind.
Okay, Bo's perfect hive mind.
It can also be like, but I think you have to
can do whatever you want. Well, yes. I empathize with you, Crofton.
I'm gonna give a verdict on cars then.
Okay, whatever.
Bring in the farm animals already.
Oh, shoot! That's the wrong. No, Mike, stop pulling this cord on this.
Sorry.
I'm supposed to bring in the farm animals. All right.
If only those farm animals were in a hive mind, they'd already be out here.
Yeah. Oh.
Connected to Bo's mind.
All right,
that's what, it should be Bo and a whole farm of animals.
There we go. We found the farm animals.
He just steals all these animals and they're disease and they're.
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Sorry. Order in the court time. Mike, you can go on first, although I think Crofton wants to go first.
Sure. I will.
Actually, I need to go early because I hosted the show. So you go. You go. This is super graceful.
This is your topic. I'm happy for you to lead off.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to lead off, and you guys should react. Let's do it that way. All right?
Fine,
because we all know my verdict. You've heard it here on the show a billion times. Hive minds are good. They're just super good. It's easy. It's good. It's good. And I think I've expounded the reasons why I think it's good over the course of the show. I don't really need to go into it. Empathy, human development, space travel, powerful thought, like more powerful computing power from a human perspective. Nothing but greatness. Greatness can be achieved if we share our minds. Oops. All right. That's my verdict.
Let's try to make humanity great again.
Strangely concise one.
Well, our listeners, I feel like they heard the rest of it.
Okay, I'll go.
You guys talked a lot in this show, so I mean, it makes sense that your verdicts be short. Like, if you have more to add at this point, then I'd be surprised.
Yeah, mine might be long. Here, let's just go. I think hive minds are bad. And I think that because I like being an individual, and I like using old-fashioned empathy to try to like understand others' plights. I think it's too much to have my brain connected to someone else's. I also think for many of the reasons I laid out, it would just break down. I think that either I agree with what Crofton said. It would just meld away, and you wouldn't exist, and you wouldn't even know that the transition had occurred. It would be functionally like dying. Maybe there's a new entity that goes on from there, but you're gone. It's like a lot of science fiction tropes talk about this. Like if you have a clone and you download your brain into it, is it really you, or you just died and there's just another one who has your memories? What's the difference? But the difference is you as an individual, you still died. You're gone. And I also think I would not undermine the fact that the millions of years of evolution that has led to you, the way you perceive the world is really something that was dictated by what it took for our ancestors to survive. And that's social stuff, and that's navigating a physical world. And I think that even if you were able to maintain yourself in a virtual space for some period of time, very quickly that perception that is giving you what your sense of self is would change, because the paradigm is now completely different. What's valuable to operate in the physical world won't be in a virtual world. It's different. You'll need different things. So maybe you would become this expanded entity, but what you see as yourself would cease to exist. And once again, it would be the same thing as functionally dying. Maybe there's a new order, but it wouldn't be you. It wouldn't have your worldviews. It might have some distant memory of what you were. But don't expect it to be like, hey, I'm Bo, I'm Super Bo now. Like, that wouldn't be true. It would have it would be gone. And I also think that I want to reiterate this last point. I think that it probably would be more terrifying than you think. I think that as soon as you lost that sense, as soon as your body was gone and you didn't have those senses to ground you, you would feel like you were in this endless spinning free fall, and you'd be like, oh God, kill me or get me out of this thing. and that you would just feel that forever probably. And you might feel a billion other people also saying, "Get me the fuck out of this thing! I want my goddamn body back." Anyways, bad.
Bad.
Okay,
Did we give you the
Falcon.
sound already? That vertigo's so long, I forgot if we gave you the sound.
I enjoyed this conversation.
All right, we're giving everyone 2. We're giving everyone 2 today. All right.
Okay, so I agree with everything Mike says. However, I would have contextualized it a lot by like we are giving verdicts as human beings that exist in the current world. And everything he said about being terrified and all that, yeah, that would last for 5 minutes until you become one giant group. And what he said about humans being gone and you being pretty much dead, yes, that may be true. But you know what? That may be better for the world, right? Like, because humanity is killing the world. Maybe being a hive mind with singular purposes will allow us to address all problems, create a perfect society, all this sort of stuff. We wouldn't have individuality anymore. We wouldn't exist as we do. As Mike made the explanation, we would pretty much be dead. And the problem with that is we are giving verdicts right now on our own demise for the betterment of the future, betterment of the future through this hive mind. So I cannot extract myself from that bias, plus the fact that I have no idea what's going to happen. So I mean, like, this giant hive mind could then go around taking over the galaxy for all I know. I have no idea. So there's no way of knowing it's a net positive.
There'd be too much. Sorry.
But everything is like everything Mike said, I agree with. It's just that the thing I had to throw in was the fact that, like, it just because it sucks for us as individuals doesn't mean that it's a negative for the universe, but it's a negative for me, and that's why I'm saying that hive minds are bad.
I thought you were going to find the good in it and give a full spread. All right.
No, and to get another sound effect and saying it again, I just like, even looking at the good, the empathy stuff, and Bo, you made some really good points, and I think that it is, your heart is in the right place, and I share those feelings, but I don't see the hive mind as being my idealized functional solution for those problems. And so plus it would take away some things that I love and all that, and yeah, I'm old school in that way, and I'm bringing in my biases, but yeah, it's bad. So bad.
Just imagine you meeting a nice other mind in the hive mind, and then rubbing that mind and giving it a dopamine rush. You wouldn't need your physical body.
And then experiencing what it did to those kittens when it was 8 years old, and being like, "Oh no, I didn't want to know that."
So
people do dark things, Bo, that you don't know about.
People do dark things, Bo.
I want to share, but before I do, I'll let Bo do the business.
Yeah, all right. So speaking of doing dark things, if you'd like to tell us about the dark things you've done, you can do that in an email form. Sending us an email at goodbadbull@gmail.com. I think we've been asking for your emails for 196 episodes, and have maybe gotten 3. We'd love to have email number 4 or 5. So shoot it on over and tell us what you think of the hive mind or any of the topics that we've written about. We'd love to read it and discuss it on the air. And yeah, we might pick it apart, but that's what we do here. So, hive mind. If you want to find out more about the show, you're listening to this, you made it through the whole hour of a Hive Mind episode, and you're still here and going, where do I subscribe to get more of this great content? Well, you can go to goodbadbull.com, and, you can like us on Facebook and comment on our pages and subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play, all the great places where you subscribe to podcasts. We live stream on twitch.tv/goodbadbull, and our videos are available on youtube.com/goodbadbull. Finally, we do have some people who listen to the show and make it this far, and those people are our patrons who support the show financially. And so for as little as $1 a month, you can go to patreon.com/goodbadbull and chip some money in the tip jar for the great audio content we provide for free to all listeners every week. We're basically the prototype for a hive mind, except it's just one-way communication. Eventually, podcasting might be two-way, and it kind of is if you send it an email. So do it that way. All right, I've done enough pandering and shilling for the patreon.com/ site. And don't worry, if you're too poor to pay, you don't have to pay. It's always free to everyone, and we love everyone the same. All right. Anyways, that about wraps it up. We're on the internet, kind of, sort of. I'm at Bo Schwartz on Twitter if you want to find out more about me. The show's Twitter handle is Good Bad Bull. If you want to get notified when we go live, new episodes go up. And finally, I'd like to ask, Michael, if our folks want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
Well, it's difficult, Bo, but they can follow my Twitter feed at ML Hodgins, though as much as I said the Hive Mind was bad, I'm also discovering social media is bad, so I might be even off that soon.
No, we've done a topic on it. I think you probably said it was bad, right? Did we do a social media one?
I bet you said, well, I don't know. I should have said bad. I certainly think so now. Okay, right. Crofton.
Well, if our listeners want to find out more about what Crofton's up to on the internet, where can our listeners find you, Crofton?
They can find me squeezing the drops of honey from my hive mind at Crofton Steers on Twitter.
Sweet. You're a good squeezer.
Hey, I had a thought like about midway through while you guys were going back and forth on this hive mind thing, and I was thinking about like if it was like a pilot project they'd be doing for the hive mind, and there'd be like 6 seats in a room with helmets, and they have like 6 people, and they're like, because it's too intense for everybody to be strapped at once, we need to do this like in groups of 6, and we're going to stick you in one at a time. And so Crofton, will start with you. Just put this helmet on, and then I'm in, and I'm getting the feelings and the vibes or whatever. And then they put Mike on, and I'm like, oh my God, oh Jesus, I can feel Mike's thoughts. And I'm like, geez, Mike, I didn't know I'd hurt your feelings so much when I said that thing. And then
don't forget you'd also say his mind is so powerful, it's hard to exist with it, but I can't.
Yeah, of course, obviously that's needless to say. And then it's going back and forth, and then they throw in some other people, maybe like Scott Johnson and some loyal listener Wicked Kitten gets thrown in there. I'm like, okay, these people are, I'm learning a lot about them. Oh, they're Americans, they think differently. I'm getting their emotions. And then at one point at the end, like they just, all the scientists are writing on their clipboards, and I don't know why they're still using clipboards. And then they're like, okay, time to connect Bo. And then they connect Bo, and all of a sudden everybody collectively starts screaming, and then Mike just starts vomiting, and then we all start vomiting. We all see each other are vomiting, and Bo's like, "What's going on? What is this thing on? Talk, and hitting it. We're all just vomiting in this room, and the scientists are like, "Oh my God, shut it down!" Anyway, that's
how comes out and is like, "Hey, I've learned a lot," and everyone else is like, trying to stab their eyes out.
I can't unsee. I can't get it out of my brain.
Can you take out my visual cortex? Those memories are in there now. I can't.
He's seen so much.
All right, fuck you guys.
I think Bo is a good person.
I know. We're just trolling him.
Yeah, I know. I'm just playing my part in this bit too. All right.
I was so funny when that came up. That when that came up, that's been in the hopper of our topic generator for so long.
And Bo's made so many. Like, I almost wanted to save it for episode 200. Honestly,
hey, we're pretty close. It was random.
But no, I know it is random, but it's still like if Bo has
I'm
made
pretty sure
so
it
many,
wasn't random. I'm pretty sure I was a big baby and looking all tired, and Mike said it's time for Hive Mind, because you see how active I participated for someone that was asleep and headachy. If you said that you did that, Mike, I would believe you, because it really did change my disposition about the show.
It was totally random.
My head is pounding, but
well, you heard me say, finally. When I said that, did you guys know which one what topic it was?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I knew,
and Bo made a groan noise and stuff.
Because he wasn't quite ready for it, but you did well.
Well, it's the one chance I get to talk about the thing I believe in the most.
Well, and every episode during your verdict.
I
mean, it's still gonna come up in the future. Just hope you guys are aware of that.
We're like dog ownership.
But
when we're all in a hive mind, we'll all only have to have one dog, and we can all walk it together.
Hey, we got to decide. We're coming up on 200. We got to decide what we want to do for that. We'll have to talk sometime. Listeners, if you have any ideas for 200, let us know.
Oh, we're on the internet, right? Someone's gonna be like, cancel your podcast. Thanks, listener Dildo69.
200 dicks. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, chat room, for hanging in there. It's Wicked Kitten 13 that's in there. Nice little shout out to her for during the show.
Thanks
That's
for
pretty cool.
and thanks for listening.
Yeah, and Cool J Punk stopped by. You're not mean, of course not. Yeah. If you're watching the VOD, thanks for watching the VOD. And this won't be on the podcast portion, so whatever. But thank you for tuning in. It was actually good. But I'm getting
Is this
tired.
a gray streak in my hair?
Yeah, and Mike's not listening anymore.
It is.
All right, GG. Thanks everyone for watching.
It's starting to show that much, eh?
Bye.
It's funny how you feel bad